Welcome to the I Get It Show, a creatively fun discussion focused on the pursuit of meaningful daily life. With a wide variety of topics, insights through celebrations, influencer interviews, and everyday life journey interactions. Inspiring you to pursue passionate happiness and discovering the simple aha moments in life that serve to power the journey of purpose. And now your hosts for the I Get It Show, Jeff Armour and Lindsay Lott.
Hi, welcome to the I Get It Show. I'm your host, Lindsay Lott, and of course, with my wonderful co-host, Jeff Armour.
Mr. Wonderful, some might say.
Mr. Wonderful,
right.
yes.
Very exciting, thank you.
Yeah, and of course, we'll be joined a little bit later with our moderator, B Wise, get all of his
Cannot
insight
wait
and wisdom.
to hear all that's going to happen. Usually it ends up being something I said wrong.
Yeah, usually it's like, usually he corrects you and validates me, so
all the time.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, right. Good news.
Yeah,
Right.
it works out.
Right. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, you look great.
So do you.
Well done. Oh, thank you. Yeah, very exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what's up today?
Well, it's a new year, like a couple weeks into a new year. Lots of newness, new things.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. New things.
So
Lots
it's
of newness
exciting.
and new things. It's a weird magical moment that happens, right? When
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like a day later, but you're supposed to
brand new.
yeah, everything's new.
Supposed to be brand new. Right?
Interesting.
Well, a lot of pressure, actually.
Is there?
Well, don't you think? Like now it's new. Start new.
Yeah. All right. 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 So how
So-
about today's episode? What are we doing
So,
today?
kind of in conjunction with that, I think a lot for me, and probably a lot of people, when we start a new year, right? There's a lot of reflection on the past year, past life experiences, things like that, as well as like intentions you want
Good
for.
news, bad news, right?
Right. Well, exactly. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like what I was thinking about in regards to today. And like I reflect on my life. A lot of the good memories and good experiences that I've had have been in connection with others, in relationships with others, loved ones and things like that.
Sure.
On the flip side of that, a lot of the crappy things I've experienced, painful experiences, disappointments, letdowns, unfortunately have also been in connection with other people and in relationships, right?
It sounds like you're telling me that people suck.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been disappointed by people, let down by people,
I
right?
mean, only all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So what do we do?
I think that's something that people all over can relate to because I'm sure we all have stories of people that we've connected to, either just strangers or people we've known for a while. That what is wrong with them? Like, what is wrong with you? Right. That seems to be a common occurrence.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
kind of does,
Right.
right? But so I guess like there's two ways to go about life then, right? We can just have nothing to do with anybody, shut everybody out, and just
Right.
live in solitude.
That seems healthy.
Right. But it's also not possible. Like we have to be able to like work with people and
I
have
mean, like living off the grid. What do you like in a mountain somewhere? What are you
that
thinking?
sounds dreamy to me.
Really? Is
but-
that right? Right. I'm more of a child of the tropics myself, so I
I
a
can see
deserted
that.
island might be my thing, for sure. I saw a meme one time that said there are two kinds of people in the world, and then it said avoid them.
Oh, okay. that's probably the best way forward.
Is that
Right.
is that where sometimes you find yourself?
Yeah.
Well, you know what's weird is that it's for me, it's really difficult. If it wasn't for all the people, the world would be a much nicer place.
Right.
But even though people kind of annoy you, like you really can't live without them.
It's really impossible. Well, I haven't figured out a way to yet. So I'm trying. Like that's one of my goals. But
Right.
until then, how do we do it? How do we manage to like work, like have people in our lives, and even when they do suck, even when they do let us down, even when they hurt us, like how do we continue to be able to be open to those relationships and allow others to like connect with us?
Well, so this is my personal opinion, right? But I think we were all created for a relationship. And so I have learned in life that there's only one reason why any relationship fails. And when people hear that, and I've said this to you and to others, right, that there's lots of guesses on what it is. Usually it's like poor communication.
That was what I said.
Whatever it is. Yeah. But there's only one reason why any type of a relationship fails, and it's unmet expectations.
Yes.
We set an expectation, you don't meet it, now I don't like you anymore, right? And so when we naturally interact with somebody, even just a stranger, we already have a preconceived idea on what we expect from them, even though we don't know anything about them. And vice versa, they have an expectation of us. It might be, why are you talking to me when I don't really want you to, right? Whatever it might be. So what creates the opportunity for relationship is where we seem to find healthy interactions with people. But how do you build that relationship? And I think over time now we've come through this weird season, right, where the world really did change. And I don't like to focus on COVID about everything, but COVID does ruin everything apparently. Yes. But that whole experience in the world changed everything and everyone. And I think that it's created a situation where most people seem to be choosing misery over anything else. And so it's like this weird thing of I like the attention that I get from having a problem. Like that attention I'm getting because I have a problem is more valuable to me than actually solving the problem.
The victim stance.
Right. And then we find people that we can interact with that share our misery, right? What's that? Is that a saying like misery? We'll have to check with B-Wise. He's much older than us. He'd probably know. Misery loves company or something. So I think that sometimes we even make up issues so we can continue to feel miserable. Right. And so how do we help people how do we get past it? And how do we encourage and help others to get past it in creating those healthy relationships?
Right. Yeah. I remember you having a conversation with you and you asked me that same question, like, why do majority of relationships fail? Or what's the number one reason relationships fail? And when you told me it was expectations, that just resonated with me. And I could think back on past relationships and it was, because I expected this person to show up in this way and they didn't. Or vice versa. They expected something out of me that I did not agree to, right?
Right. So it doesn't mean that you're right or you're wrong. It doesn't mean they're right or they're wrong. Just the basics are I have an expectation and you didn't meet it.
Right.
Right. So that creates this spiral effect. And then I'm saying me, not necessarily me, but we as a human race seem to like then gravitate to find people who can validate our negative feeling about that person, right? Or about that situation. And so we seek that out. It's so often the relationship that we have to our pain, our painful moments, is actually has a more powerful hold on us than the draw of the alternative, which is to be able to be an overcomer. And I think because it's often unfamiliar to us, like the pain is more familiar, so we hold on to it, or the misery, because we don't want to let go of that because of whatever the alternative might be, seem better, but because it's unfamiliar.
Yeah, you remain stuck in it. And I think sometimes too, people like identify with their pain. Like that's their pain. Like that's their identity, right?
Yeah.
Like this is who I am.
Yeah, I'm miserable. I'm a horrible person, or nothing ever works out for me, or whatever that is.
Right.
And I would totally agree. And I think that's where when you talk about kind of COVID's bringing all this light, right? So when we hear all these stories, whether we're on social media or God forbid we should ever listen to the news, right? There's like all of these negative stories that pile one on top of the other. And so as we do all of these negative things over and over and over again, it becomes this overwhelming thing. So no wonder when you go to the store, people that you see like look miserable or look unhappy or, don't want anybody to talk to them because it's just one more thing they're going to have to deal with in a difficult environment. Right. And so when you're in a place where you feel like people, I guess I was going to say suck, but people aren't really meeting your expectations. What does one do with that? Does that mean that we automatically validate that we're wrong and they're right, or they're right and I'm wrong, or what?
I've been in that position before where initially I'm like, oh, I'm horrible because I upset this person with whatever I did intentionally or unintentionally, or even if I'm not aware of exactly what I did. But I've been able to, I think it's wise to flip that and instead just be aware. Okay, that's who that person is. That's what I can expect from them. And communication, I still think, is a big part of that. If you want to have a relationship, you have to be able to communicate. This is what I expect. So
you tell them they suck? That's a form of communication?
Well, I think initially with any relationship, it's kind of known and seen. But yeah, I think you still have to communicate, like if you were hurt or offended by something, because maybe they don't know. And then I do think also that if those expectations aren't met repeatedly, it's okay and healthy to have boundaries with everybody in our lives.
So if you had boundaries, but you're interacting with a person that you haven't communicated those boundaries to, how do you navigate them not behaving or responding in the way that you find appropriate?
communication. No, that's tricky though,
do you do?
because most
Yeah.
people, a lot of people take offense to boundaries and think that boundaries are there to hurt them or push them away, right? When in reality, boundaries are to protect us, to
Yeah.
love ourselves, right? So I
Yeah.
think it's scary, but I've been there where I've had to communicate boundaries to other people and it wasn't always well received.
So I'm thinking, speaking of people who suck, right? Maybe we should check in with our show moderator and see what that's all about. Be wise, why don't you come in and tell us what you're thinking? What are you hearing today?
Oh boy, what an entry! What an entry! And let me say, you're wise to come to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an excellent topic today. People suck. People suck, and so I think that what we need to determine is at what degree do they suck. I heard one time that people are 90% good and 10% bad. So if we just are focusing on the 10% of the bad in people, then what's an acceptable level of bad? What's an acceptable level of suck? And so, I guess we got to determine that for ourselves, right? Jeff, I wanted to mention to you that misery does love company.
Okay.
Wanted to circle back around to that. I also, you had mentioned that you want to avoid two types of people. And it reminded me of a quote from April Ludgate. I don't know if you remember who she is.
Yeah, not at all. How about you, Lindsay?
No,
Yeah, not at all.
She
No.
was a character. She was a character on the TV show Parks and Recreation. And Parks and Rec. And so April Ludgate said, I wasn't listening, but I strongly disagree.
Yeah, that sounds like 2023.
Yeah, I think that captures what everybody was saying. Lindsay, you talked about identity. You talked about that sometimes it's in their identity. And I wanted to mention to everyone that there is a thing in the world of psychology called belief superiority. It's an actual thing, and it is exactly what you think it is. People have this opinion of themselves that no matter what it is, and it's on both sides of the argument, no matter where you land on that, but on both sides of that argument, they believe that their opinion is correct to the extent that your opinion is wrong. And that's in the psychology world called belief superiority. So it's an actual thing. And so people have this thing. And I think that social medias have given cover to people that in the past where you had these face-to-face communications, now you have these social medias where you can just under the cover of darkness speak your mind and say what you want to say, and it's created this air of suckiness. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. I think that's true. I think a lot of there's a protection behind social media, right? So people can act and say and do things that they wouldn't necessarily face to
Yeah, for sure. So when we come back to Brian B. Wise, we're going to be, I'm sure, hearing a lot about some other sayings from the past shows that he's watched in order to feel like we were a part of this culture of how do we get past people that suck into a world where we can actually coexist and maybe be better. So what is your response to what he just said to you?
Well, I really like how he broke it down, right? 10% of the person is a whole person, right? None of us are perfect ever. 90% is good, but then
Speak
there's
for yourself.
Right. I know.
Right,
well,
right.
there's the exception of you, obviously.
Yeah, you throwing me into the rest of the people, but whatever.
But then the 10% of a person is maybe sucky or difficult or whatever. But I think that there's a balance there, right? Because I think we do need to give people grace, but I have kind of gone overboard with that many times, giving people the benefit of the doubt repeatedly to be disappointed and let down over and over and over again. So I think we have to always maintain those boundaries, right? Still give people grace and have understanding if they let us down or don't come through, or meet our expectations. But at the end of the day, if it's just repeated and there's no effort on the other person's part, we still have to take care of ourselves first and have those boundaries.
Yeah. So, I find that in my daily experiences, I try to do a few things because I think that people look for understanding. I think they're looking for three things: something to believe, somewhere to belong, and someone to become. Right. And so in that process of interacting with just random strangers, I've tried to lead out with a couple of things. One is I tell random strangers all the time, this is really great, and you should try this next time you go to a retail establishment or maybe a restaurant or something like that. You use it with people on the street, is tell random strangers, hey, I'm proud of you. It's rare that people hear that anymore, that they're proud of them. And often they'll ask me, why are you proud of me? And, I can relate to the fact that sometimes I know what it's like just to be able to get out of bed and have pants on still, right? So that's maybe more than you wanted to know, Lindsay. But it's the truth of the matter is that, people sometimes don't get credit for the fact that they're present and you don't know what they've been going through.
Yes.
The other is I think that we've been called to love people irregardless of what, kind of where their behavior is. And so telling random strangers that, hey, I'm proud of you and I love you, I think that opens up people's hearts so you can see maybe where they're actually coming from. And the other part of it for me is as I go through all this process of thinking, why are people the way that they are? How can I be better at interacting with them? And I think that it comes down to people often don't feel like they have a genuinely attractive tomorrow to look forward to.
Okay.
Right. And so we deal with our reality today in a negative way because we have nothing to look forward to. At least we don't see it. Right. And I think that anyone can deal with really difficult todays if they have a genuinely attractive tomorrow to look forward to. And you can think about that in your life, right? When there's things like, if I get through today, tomorrow is, often people will do that for like, it's Friday, right? Or it's almost the weekend or whatever, or I'm going on vacation or whatever that is.
If you can see that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Right.
It gives you that extra motivation through difficulty.
Right. Yeah. When you were talking, I was thinking of, you ever read or heard of the book, The 4 Agreements? Okay. So basically there's like 4 things he mentions as like a code of conduct, right, in our relationships and to like eliminate suffering. And one is like, don't make assumptions. And I think that was like, that came to my mind when you were explaining, like, you don't know what someone else is going through, right? You sit there. And the other one was don't take things personally and communicate. And then I think the other one is do your best. But I think those are good things to be reminded of when we do try to relate to other people, because even yesterday I was trying to get a hold of a coworker, collect something from them, and I was really frustrated with no responses to multiple texts I had sent. Well, come to find out, her brother had passed away. I did not know that, right? But I was grateful that I didn't make assumptions and get upset and
because it'd be
take
easy
it
to
personally
do, right?
that she wasn't responding to me. But I think that's always something to be aware of, that don't take things personally. You don't know what's going on in other people's lives. But
I think that's really good advice. It's like improving our lives must involve us, I think, focusing on things we can control rather than focusing on things we can't control. You couldn't control her response, but you could control how you respond.
How I reacted, right, and how I didn't react, right.
And how do you see that changing, your perspective in dealing with people, especially at times when they're not the most fun to deal with? How can you see that perspective being used to maybe even impact someone in a positive way?
I think just having compassion and recognizing that we're all in this life, we're all dealing with our own challenges, and sometimes it's painful and sometimes it's hard. And, like you said, you've been in a position where you didn't want to get out of bed with pants on or whatever that description was. But we've all been in that.
That's the part you remember. Thanks, Lindsay.
But we've all been in some similar situation in our own darkness. And we just have to remind ourselves that so is everybody else. And even on the outside, if it all looks perfect and put together, there's still challenges in their lives that they're dealing with.
Yeah. I think that's, I think keeping that in perspective is really good. And often we project our expectations onto somebody like, hey, I'm saying this to you, or hey, I did this, and their response isn't what we want. I think that we have to look at it differently if we want to improve our circumstances, improve our own lives. I think that you have to kind of react creatively, passionately. You kind of have to be decisive in your approach of saying, whatever your actions or reactions are, doesn't necessarily have to be evidence of my character.
Right. And not have an expectation of that, right? Like I say something to you, I want you to give me this certain reaction.
Right.
And if you don't, then that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I don't take that personally.
Right.
Like I'm still okay.
This is really good dating advice as well.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we have a whole series of
right. I know
dating.
we've got to have a really cool discussion about dating coming up. But so I'm wondering if now that Be Wise has heard this, these next steps, what's your reaction to what Lindsay's trying to do here?
Yeah, I mean, this is we've gotten into the meat of our topic, and I love that. I did want to go back and correct one thing. Or
There's always a correction in the show. That's why he's the moderator. Bring
right,
the heat.
Jeff says irregardless.
That's right.
And while that's a really fun word, I believe from the show Sopranos, the word is regardless. But I often say irregardless as well.
Yeah.
So I wanted to point that out. Also,
I don't feel the need to make sure that you always know that you're wrong.
Yeah, you want to get out of bed with pants on, and I wanted to point out everyone gets out of bed with no pants on unless they went to bed with pants on. So I did want to point that.
Lindsay, I'm not exactly sure that that's true either.
So I did want to sum up
Crazy
everything. There's five things that y'all brought up. Five things. What we can do to overcome the people suck. We can decide not to use social media as our forum to debate with those that we disagree with. We can add love, tolerance, and kindness to everyone we speak with. We can focus more on the 10% of the good and less on ourselves, maybe more on them. Then we can remember that what we fill our minds with is how we view other people. So if we fill our minds with love and positivity, then we'll see the world in that form. And finally, in the words of Atticus Finch, you probably remember Atticus Finch, Jeff, when he spoke to his daughter Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird, he says, "You never understand a person until you consider things from their point of view."
It's I don't remember that in any way, shape, or
wise
form.
word.
However, I do like it. It is wise words for sure. So I like it. I like it a lot. And irregardless of where this topic continues to go, we always appreciate your insight. So thanks.
Yes,
Brian,
thank you.
You're welcome.
But I think that you made good points, right? Tolerance, compassion,
Well, you're
love,
willing to
kindness.
think. You can think whatever you want.
I know,
That's
I
on you.
And right, like I really like that point, that as far as like how we see the world is based on what's going on in our minds, what our perspective is. It's all different. But I think that was a good point to remember when we were relating to people.
I like it. That's I think that when we are talking about people, it's difficult to live a vibrant, healthy, successful life without engaging relationships with the people that we come in contact with, for sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's a great topic. And I think relationships are some of the most beautiful things we have in our lives. Also, hands down, the most difficult and complicated. And it's like a constant struggle to sort that out and maintain a healthy relationship with those that are in our lives. So.
Yeah, I like it. So I know that you wanted to throw it to me for last thoughtful remarks. And so I thought a few things. And first of all, I wanted to encourage not only Lindsay and Be Wise, but those that might be listening to this along the way, that people need people like you, right? That we all connect in different ways to different people and different circumstances, but people need people like you. And often people come into our lives, and there's a purpose in everyone you meet and connect to. Some people come into your life to test you. That seems to be very popular, right? Yeah. Some come into our lives to teach us that we can learn and grow. There are some that come into our lives, quite honestly, to use us. And sometimes it can be frustrating, but that's what happens. And then I think there's another group of people, and sometimes it's the same person that can do all of this at different times. But the last one is, I think that people come into our lives to help bring out the best in us, and that we can never, ever realize the best of who we are without interacting with people in a way that helps us grow together. And so I would encourage, as we grow and as we learn to gather with people, that instead of piling on all the negative in our lives, that we really focus on the possibilities and the brightness and the hope of tomorrow as a way of encouraging us to make it through our difficult days in order to see that success flourish.
Oh, that's beautiful. Actually, I really love that, because I do think that everything happens for a reason, and every relationship in our lives is for our benefit, even if it's to learn a really hard lesson again. Right. Like I really like that. And I think that it's a lot of how we show up and our perspective and how we're able to see other people, and how we're also allow ourselves to be seen, that makes those relationships possible and allows them to flourish. So appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And so do you have any final thoughts on this before we get on out of here for today?
I think just reiterating kind of what I said. I think it's about communication with our expectations and our boundaries, but also seeing other people as whole people, that they have their own pain and their own challenges, and giving them a little bit of grace and seeing them with compassion and love.
I like it. Yeah, people definitely grow better together.
Yes.
And the key is finding those people that some are for a season, some are for a lifetime, right? And finding the value in that. And what value do we give, but also what value do we give as far as that interaction, for sure.
I love that.
That was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a great conversation. So we want to continue the conversation. Please find us on our social media channels. And our next show, we will be talking about falling apart or falling into.
I love it.
Thank you. Thank you, Be Wise.
You've been listening to The I Get It Show. Witty and insightful conversations about nothing, discussing how our daily lives are influenced by everything. Feel free to reach out. TheIGetItShow@gmail.com. Like and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, this has been The I Get It Show. This has been a production from a podcast studio.